Hey there, goblins. Welcome to Goblin Salvage Rights.
Salvage your rights in our junk yard.
Today's episode is about Rage of Elements.
Very angry elements and elementals.
Yes. We are doing our top 10 Rage of Elements picks. We've now had the book for about a month or so.
Has it been that long?
I don't know.
It feels like it just came out yesterday.
What is time? A couple weeks.
Yeah. What are numbers? Our top 10 is I grab 5, Robert grabs 5.
Yeah.
It comes out to 10. There it is.
Math. That's how math works.
Yeah. Goblin math.
Yeah, we're going to talk about how we approached our top 5, top 10 or whatever here in a minute.
Yup.
But first, we need to thank a lovely patron.
A lovely patron. You know who you are and you did not want to be named. So I'm going to humbly and quietly say thank you for your patronage.
Spooky patron.
Mysterious
patrons. All right, cool beans. Before we jump into the topic, let's talk about what we played.
Yeah, we actually did play a couple of games. I ran one and you ran one.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
for Edgewatch, it felt like an in-between session for me. So the session prior to that, we ended in the middle of an important NPC conversation.
Absolutely.
And so we had to get back into that space 4 weeks later when we played this most recent session.
That's right. Both of our games, we had missed an off week.
Big gaping hole. So I don't know about you and you're running things over there, but I don't remember shit every 2 weeks. Give me 4 weeks between games, and it's almost like starting over. And I know some of you have gone through this before.
I take notes.
Yeah. I take note.
I take note. After every game, I immediately when I get in the car, I open up Notion and I go to my notes.
See, that's what a
section,
responsible GM does, and I am none of these things.
and then I just hit voice record and I start screaming into my phone goblins killed this, blah, 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 made friend. And then the next morning when I wake up sober, I'm like, all right. What they say?
What is this message? Don't remember to forget and don't forget to remember.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
What was that old saying? Write drunk and edit sober.
Yeah,
There
Hemingway.
You go. There you go.
Pop into a thing or
Thanks,
two.
Hemingway.
Yeah, so my game was not too terribly exciting, and that was namely because it felt like it was a little disjointed for me. It felt like the middle piece of a chunky 3-piece session.
Mm-hmm.
And we were basically playing a catch up with the content. So had the conversation. Everybody got to go out and do their individual scenes like you usually do. And it almost had just a tiny bit of a downtime feel where everybody had just some loose ends they needed to tie up before getting to the dungeon crawl.
Yeah, which took up the last half an hour of the game.
Right, of the 5-hour session, the last 30 minutes was, all right, you guys approach the dungeon
Now
and to
we're
be
here.
continued.
Yeah, it was, I loved it though. I had a really good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the party. That's our group. We talk.
And you're kind of my barometer for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
If I can keep you happy and there's no
Yeah.
combat in the game, then I must have done something right.
Exactly.
So I stopped beating myself up at that point.
Exactly. That's your get out of jail free card for sure. I ran Kingmaker. The players, Kingmaker spoilers going forward. Skip to the next thing in the doobly-doo underneath the not hear spoilers.
Does that mean I can leave?
Yeah. No, please don't. Please don't. I can't carry this. It'll only be a top 5. Yeah.
Goblin math, top 2.5.
Top 2. Kingmaker was really interesting because the players did exactly what I expected them to do, which was talk their way through everything. They just killed all the Mitflits, and then they went on to the kobolds.
Yeah. And for the record, I'm not the party face this time. So when you say they talked their way through everything, I just nodded my head and kept my sword out.
It was all Jacques.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was fabulous.
Yeah, Jacques could probably talk his way through anything in the real world. So seeing him do it in a game is just
it's a little surreal.
Yeah, it's very surreal. But the book actually, what's interesting, the book actually calls for the guard standing in the front, literally saying, please don't kill me. If you want to talk to our leader, you can.
And this was a kobold, right?
This was a kobold. Yeah. And then the leader's supposed to give you a quest. And hopefully, based on the way that the map works, you've already completed the quest. You walk in. The players walked in, and it turns out the kobolds have been taken over by a powerful sorcerer who is a purple kobold, Tartuk. And the kobold the kobold chief was basically like, yeah, this guy's fucking me over. Yep. I did the bong.
You did the bong thing.
Yeah. So basically one of the players made a joke about his peace pipe, so I just like acted out a bong, ripping a bong, and
We got all Weekend and Bernie's up in here.
Literally, it was awesome. So he passed the peace pipe a couple times and made some fortitude saving throws. And basically the king was like, yeah, dude, if you can lift the curse, then we'll just murk this guy.
Yeah. See, I kind of rationalized that away in my head by saying this guy got supplanted by another kobold.
Yeah.
And this is depression. This is how he's processing it. So he's just doing bong rips in the middle of his little shitty little cavern warren with a bunch of the kobolds that remain loyal to him. Yep. They're on their own little shitty mats. Exactly. And they're just like, the fuck do you want?
Literally, yeah.
And then we come around and say, we're going to help you take your high chair back. And he kind of put the bong down and said, all right, let's go do this right now. And he got straight up homicidal at that point. So it wasn't so disjointing with the whole, I don't know, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure kind of vibe for that particular scene. Because I was able to take my own personal rationalization, keep it quiet in my head so I can remain invested in the story. And I have no idea how everybody else was processing that around the table, but it was a fun scene for sure.
Absolutely. And then they killed. So like the bard let loose a 2nd level spell. The Tartuk and his 2 guards all critically failed.
Yeah.
So the 2 guards just died immediately.
Yeah. This is a sonic spell, if I remember right.
Yeah. Sonic boom or something like that. And then Tartuk took half of his HP. Then the barbarian, and he buffed everyone with bardic performance. And then the barbarian charged up along with the fighter, you, and just murked. Yep. Didn't
he like double crit or triple crit or something?
You critted and the barbarian just did well. Yeah. That's all it took, honestly.
Yeah, he just went down. And the best part of this story is this little bastard's name was Tartuk. And there's another little bastard that we met earlier whose name was Tartuccio.
Yeah.
And I had been joking out of character for a long time. What if it's the same dude? It's got to be the same dude. You know, that's a little too close for it not to be. And then Robert here decides to show us art of the kobold. And I talked myself out of my earlier conspiracy thinking, well, if you have art for this kobold guy, it can't be Tartuccio, you know, the shitty little gnome. And it turned out it was. So we accidentally killed a major NPC that had every legal right to be there doing exactly what we were doing.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then
it was a big oops moment all the way around.
The players feel bad for killing Tartuccio.
Yeah.
And I've got one of my players in front of me, so I can't like tell you what is actually supposed to happen. But anyone who's read the story or knows the story they're going to bring him back
what
to
are the
life?
Consequences downstream? Because
this
guy's probably supposed to stick around for a while.
You guys are going to bring him back to life, right?
I don't know, man. That costs gold. And
no. Like he was dying, but then Jacques immediately said he cast Soothe.
Oh, he went and stabilized him.
Yeah. So that's right where we ended it too. We're like, we're going to pick up next session right there.
This game is so interesting to me because the things that make me happy as a player don't make my character happy. So like, I'll say things periodically at the table like, so Erik is all on board with this, but Adis has a problem, and here it is. And then I get into character and use my Adis voice.
I don't know why you did that to yourself, but it's awesome.
It's fun. You know, the whole idea of keeping like a Chinese wall between myself and the construct that I make for these games.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, I'm just playing a million versions of myself, and that's boring. You know, when I pick up a character and I play it in a game, I like to step into another personality, sort of like exercise that empathy muscle if I can.
Totally.
It was a cool session. I liked your game much better than I liked my game.
Oh, stop. You say that every time.
Yeah, it's true every time.
Erik just has DMing performance anxiety.
Oh, yeah. That's what it is. Maybe more in a little bit of imposter syndrome, but
oh my God.
That's how it is.
That's just how
that's most of us, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I just look around. I'm like, did you guys have fun? Did you guys have fun? And we're just like, yeah. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Good job. Gold sticker. You know what I mean?
There needs to be like gaming therapy or something like that. Like therapists who actually play D&D, and that's how they run you through a process. Is that a thing? That should be a thing.
That might be a thing.
Yeah. Because roleplay is huge in therapy.
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
But do they use dice?
Too poor for that shit. Do they use dice?
I'd like.
Okay.
Your time is up. I'm afraid you got to go. I'm going to use a hero point for another 10 minutes.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
new life plan.
All right. So let's
What are
talk
we doing
about our
here?
topic. Let's talk about our topic.
Our top 2.5, top 5, top 10.
Top 10.
Yeah.
From Rage of Elements.
Yeah.
Rage of Elements.
I really like these top 10 lists we do because it gives me a chance to sort of understand why I like things.
Mhm.
And one of the things I'm learning is that when you and I construct these top 10s, how we do it is often more informative than what is on the list itself. So when I put together my top 10, I felt like it would be really easy for me to just do nothing but metal because wood and metal are the new planar elements.
Metal's
so obviously they're going to have
awesome.
new deities, they're going to have new monsters, they're going to have new spells, stuff in the toolbox,
Yeah.
the planes themselves, the lore, the art. The new stuff is usually super exciting to me, as well as taking the old stuff and kind of freshening it up. So I could have easily just done 5 metal things that I loved. And I thought that would be a really fucking boring list. So the approach I took, and then you ended up agreeing to that and doing your own version of that, was essentially one monster, one favorite NPC, a favorite spell, and then a couple of more.
It was a mechanical thing and a monster,
a piece of crunch, an NPC,
crunch,
a monster,
spell, monster, NPC,
and a piece of lore.
Lore.
And I fully expected all like the lore heavy stuff to be the top of my list, and it didn't quite work out that way.
Yeah. So when you sent me this prompt, this like framework, the way I had it in my mind was I'm picking my favorite thing out of all of these 5 things, but I never categorized them within each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
looking back, do you think you would have if you had?
They're just, it's apples and oranges in a lot of ways.
Okay.
And it's hard to, we could make a whole video. Our favorite lore nuggets from Rage of Elements, our favorite spells from Rage of Elements. If we really wanted to game the YouTube system, that's definitely something we could do.
Yeah.
But instead, I just kind of picked my favorite thing from each category.
Yeah.
And I didn't really put them in any particular order.
I happen to like my my crunch choice more than I like my lore choice. And that's kind of what I mean when I say that these lists, how you approach these kinds of top favorite lists.
Yeah.
That informs the list itself and is often more revealing than just what's on it.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Actually. Yeah.
It was when I was doing it. I didn't realize I was doing it that way, but I did it and I looked at it and went, whoa, that was neat. I meant to do that.
Awesome. Well, why don't you go ahead and get us started then?
Okay, cool. As usual, I got a couple of honorable mentions. I'll try to keep them quick. The Twins of Rowan. If you imagine a huge-sized arboreal tree person, now take that image in your head and make them conjoined twins, and take that image and make it so that everything below the waist is a tree trunk. So what is this, like 8 by 8 squares? Whatever huge is, I forget at the moment. I keep confusing gargantuan and huge, but it's a massive creature, huge creature, and he's running around on his little trunky trunk with his little rooty roots out there.
Okay, go on.
And they have special abilities like throw trunk. Trunk. They can rip trees out of the earth and just chuck trunks at people. Trunks at people. So that's cool. Yeah, being able to yeet the forest is is cool. They're great for a boss fight because number one, they're so big. Yeah. You can almost treat it like the name of that game, Shadow of the Colossus, where you climb giant things and then you go dink 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 on the way up.
I played the shit out of that game when I was a kid.
Yeah. They also they keep their consciousness. Like their consciousness, we consider consciousness to be up here, maybe even our gut flora and the conversations between the two. But for these guys, their consciousness is down in the root system. And I remember there was a story I heard ages ago about a forest where somewhere on Earth, there's a forest and every single root was connected to every other root. So it was like this matrix, this root matrix going throughout the entire forest. And it was basically one tree. So there's a lot of that kind of feeling as I ran around in the elemental plane of wood. It made me kind of review how I think of monsters a little bit, So I guess that's the Twins of Rowan. I like the metal relic gifts that they had to offer in this book. Oh my
God, yeah. I kind of stayed away from the relic gifts to begin with, just because they're so unique on their own
Mhm.
that they kind of deserve their own like update to our
Sure.
relics
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, we're both super positive on the relic
Yeah.
system,
I
period.
introduced it in a game I ran, the undead game that I ran, which was
Yeah.
kind of like a side project right before we did Kingmaker.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I really love the relics. I introduced 2 relics to the players that kind of smoothed out a lot of the problems I thought the players would have going forward. And these kind of a bunch of my players are those kinds of players that don't like buying stuff. So the more I can give them cool epic items that they don't have to then go out and buy and worry about player balance, the better.
Yep.
If you have players who like buying stuff, me, you should just give them money and let them go shop. But
That works in real life too,
it does. It does.
Yeah.
It does. Especially with my partner.
I accept both large and small bills.
Exactly. Yeah. We do have a Patreon, not to shill too hard, but
Tee that one up.
I know, right? But yeah, no, I really like the relic system and the metal and wood relic.
I'm glad it's
items
still
are
getting
awesome.
support. That means
Yeah.
enough people like it out there that they're occupying space inside future books.
What it shows me is that Paizo's really trying hard to create a system or create systems
Mhm.
and then continue to build on them going forward.
Yeah.
Not
yeah,
just
like
like-
slowly and all too slowly in some cases, but at least they're getting some support.
Exactly. It's just not like one and done out of a book, and then years later we're like, what happened?
Yeah.
No, they're actually building on it. And I think
Yeah,
that's awesome.
and specifically for this one, the metal relic gifts, I saw something I really liked in it, and that's the reason why it's an honorable mention. If you take the minor gift called Complete the Circuit,
Mm.
which is the very first thing you can take for this thing, it lets you do one of 3 different things as an action. It's a reaction that triggers this thing, and once it happens, you can either go the capacitor, inductor, or resistor route, and those are 3 very different effects.
Mhm.
That once the trigger occurs, you get to choose which of those 3 occur. So it's not like I have one item that does one thing, like a unitasker in the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
You have one item that can do 3 things. It's almost like a Swiss Army series of options.
These
And
are
I want
really,
more of that stuff.
yeah, these are really tricky to do in a game as complex as Pathfinder,
Mm-hmm.
simply because PF2E is already super complex. And if we add more and more levels of complexity within levels of complexity, it begins to get like a little too much for a lot of players. And I think this is relics are rare, right? So the fact that we can put these behind rare items
Mhm.
and kind of hand them out that way is really important to remember.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is a rare item. It comes with a lot of complexity. Oftentimes, common items are common and they're the general level of complexity. Uncommon items are almost always tied to a regionality. And that's the only thing that makes them uncommon. There's really no power difference.
Sure.
Rare items are always more powerful
Mhm.
than any other item that's lower than them. And they come with a lot more complexity, generally speaking. I mean, even the rare backgrounds, you know what I mean? Like, that's actually a really good example of the power difference
Mhm.
because it's so obvious.
Sure. So I like it.
Yeah.
Rarity
it's great.
notwithstanding, the idea of being able to choose becoming electrically charged, gaining a +1 status bonus to attack and damage
Mhm.
until the end of your next turn, or your resistance against electricity damage
Awesome.
increases to the level of your relic until the end of your turn, or your relic attempts to counteract the effect. On a failure, your relic overheats, dealing fire damage to you equal to the counterattack rank of the effect, or double the counterattack rank on a critical failure. Those are 3 distinct reaction options,
Yeah.
and it allows for greater tactical flexibility in the moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. And more options.
Instead of
in
having
this
to use
case.
like an action to reach into your backpack to grab the thing that's supposed to do what you want.
Exactly. More options in this case is a little more powerful because those 3 options are all so good. But then again, you're already balancing around having a rare item in your party to begin with. So, sweet. You got
My
another
final honorable mention is the art. I always gotta
Yeah.
talk about the art. Not only is the art fabulous, but there's like a dozen and a half or so different artists that are credited in this book. Wayne Reynolds being the obvious first name, and there's just so many others. And somebody in this book has been reading a lot of Planescape before they did this, because it shows at the beginning of the introduction to each of the elemental planes within the book. There's this great I don't know if that's like watercolor or something, pencil art, but it has that classic almost Conan second edition D&D kind of quality to it.
I loved these intro pages. They were amazing. It's the first thing I went and read. I just bounced around and read all the intro pages and went through this little block of philosophy.
I'm betting a lot of people did that. Yeah.
Yeah. The block of philosophy. I was not expecting these opening paragraphs to be so philosophical and deep and almost like spiritual in some ways.
Yeah.
I was reading and I was like, Jesus Christ, guys. Especially the wood one and the metal one. I was like, woo.
Yeah.
That's heavy. So
they took us to school.
Exactly. And so I'm super impressed by the art, especially these intro areas. And this just gives me Planescape vibes.
I keep going back to Planescape. Yeah. Maybe even Dark Sun.
Ship especially.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it for my honorable mentions.
Sweet.
Big conjoined twin tree dude, new relics, and some spiffy art. So yeah, that leads us up to our list. Do you want to start us off with what your number 5 was and talk about?
I didn't really line them up in an order, so why don't I just follow you? You pick the category.
I pick a monster. You talk about your monster, and we just go that way. Totally. Okay. My number 5 is my monster choice. So there are these critters in here. Can you grab page 108? They're called Zeomorns or Jomorns. I have no idea how to pronounce them because Pathfinder has. I know you guys over at Paizo get off on creating names that we can't pronounce.
Yeah, these things are freaking rad and powerful too. Holy
They're
crap.
rad. They're powerful. They've got amazing lore to go with them. And all of that is fine just by itself. But they went one step further and they used that lore to explain one of the great mysteries of the setting going all the way back to whenever this thing started.
What's that?
That is the Vault Keepers. So in D&D and Pathfinder, there's sort of like an Underdark area. And in the deepest parts of the Darklands for Pathfinder, there are these things called the vaults. And somebody built those vaults. And I don't think we knew, at least I don't think we knew until now, who did that.
Oh.
Were they aliens who seeded the world and left and they crafted these vaults? Was it some ancient dead god? I never knew. And I thought it was always supposed to be a big mystery, like who killed Aradin? Like the top 5 mysteries of the setting. And one of them was, where did these vaults come from? Who made them?
And that was answered in this book.
It was answered in this book. So like 65,536 of these guys were created once upon a time.
Wow. Okay.
And at one point, those elemental bastards in the plane of Earth, they started monkeying around with things like eons and eons and eons ago. And these evil elemental lords, they got up to some hijinks and they decided to trap and ensnare the good elemental lords of the respective planes. And they just locked them up and threw away the key. And it wasn't until one of the recent Pathfinder Society series years where they got released. And now they're back. These good elemental lords are floating around in realms that they haven't seen for eons.
And I love the idea that a lot of these good elemental lords, because we're moving away from like the traditional good and evil system.
Right.
Some of them are not the goodest you'd imagine them to be.
No.
Some of them are stereotypically just like, I love growing plants and creations and helping people.
But I think I know who you're talking about because those guys, they're like, I love growing plants, but they've been like locked away in a closet for eons. And this is sort of their coping mechanism.
Yeah.
This book is dark, you guys. There's a lot of depression in the NPC personalities running around, like massive amounts of severe depression.
And
so
that humanizes them a lot.
It does. Yeah. And I really, really dig that. So to circle all this back to the Zeomorns, there was basically a split. I'm not going to call it a civil war, but essentially this guy right here who looks like a T-Rex if you're looking at the cover of the book, and he looks like a jewel encrusted dragon if you're looking at the interior art. He's the elemental lord of Earth and radioactivity and garbage like that. Anyhow, he managed to, what's the word? He managed to gaslight all of these Zeomorns into giving up their power to him. And eons later, we have these entries here. So there is a challenge rating of, I think, what is it, 24 for one of them and 14 for the other.
Yeah, it's like 24 and 14.
Yeah, so like one half is twice as powerful as the other half. That's because they sold off their power to the elemental Lord of Evil and Earth. And it's just there's a whole lot of backstory involved in that you can read for yourself here.
For mooks, like for quote unquote mooks,
right,
followers of a god. Like normally when we think of that, we just think of like random little specks of people worshiping. But no, they're like badass creatures on their own. I mean, like level 23, that's practically a god unto themselves compared to other creatures. Yeah,
that just feels so mythic to me.
Exactly. It is mythic. I mean, you know, a party of level 20 heroes, that's one of them is like a challenging encounter.
Yeah.
That's insane. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a really cool piece of lore, and they're definitely some interesting monsters.
Yep. They're builders and keepers, so they do things like create crystal wands that give you earth spells. When they do damage to you, they leave like almost like plaguey crystalline fragments behind. I think they explode. They just do all kinds of cool stuff. I picked this guys for my list because it answered the vault question. You know, how did the great vaults of the Underdark, or the Darklands in this case, come to be? It's a big question, and we're 15 years into the life cycle of this entire intellectual property, and I just last month got the answer to that question. Which is a big deal for me.
Yeah, that's fucking
I'm a lore guy, so that was that had to be in my top 5. So for monsters, what was your monster pick?
Imagine a creature that slithers into your life and consumes your sadness. That is the asp of grief.
The asp of grief. And it has nothing to do with the Dementors and Harry Potter.
Absolutely not. When I first saw this creature, I think in the first episode, our first reactions episode, I was like, this thing's badass. And then I read like every other creature in the entire book, and I kept coming back to this piece of art and the story blurb right here. So the asp of grief is fascinating because for so many reasons, it kind of flips a lot of tropes on its head in a lot of ways, mechanically and in the story. Effectively, what the asp of grief is it's a creature that literally consumes despair and sadness. So during funeral rites, they actually have like a little sidebar here. During funeral rites in the plane of elemental metal, people will make sacrifices to them and burn like what is the metal equivalent of incense to draw them near. And they will eat away at the sadness of a funeral to help people cope. More than that, they're inquisitive little bastards.
Yeah.
They actually say it right here, I think in their last paragraph. Intensely curious creatures, asps of grief, crave information about magic and the multiverse. They might attach themselves to an adventuring party, ask wanderers they meet for any obscure arcane knowledge they may have come across on their journeys. And in exchange, the asps literally act as your therapist. As a callback to our previous conversation.
It's all connected.
They will offer to help those travelers work through any anguish or trauma that they have, or at least help them, you know, with the pain of depression and sorrow for at least a brief moment. To me, that was like beautiful. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know those
I was not expecting that from this picture. You know what I mean?
There's certain cultures where they hire professional grievers to show up to a funeral, and they tear their hair out and they claw out their skin and they rend at their clothes, and they I don't want to say ham it up because that's disrespectful, but they basically elevate the level of the grief to performative levels, because that's what they're doing. And it almost feels like if Dr. Phil was one of those guys, and
gotcha. What a wild connection.
Come slithering up to the party, and you know, I will eat your grief, and maybe you can tell me a couple of things that you've seen on your journeys, and we'll talk about your mother some. So
gotcha.
let's get going, you guys. We got a dungeon to traverse,
to crawl through. Yeah. What I love is their beard. They have little beards made out of bells.
That is so strange to me.
It's so weird, and they sail through magnetic fields in the plane of elemental.
That part is cool. Yeah. I mean, they could have just said like they fly, but no, there's magnetism, and that helps them in their movement.
So you probably already saw it, but I want you to guess what level this creature is.
Oh God, I knew and I forgot and I continue to forget. So it's elemental plane of metal.
It's a small sized creature.
It's small. So when I think small, I think like lower levels. I don't think high levels.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I'm gonna guess 6, somewhere between 4 and 6. That's my knee jerk.
It's level 10. It's a level 10 creature. To me, they didn't have to do this. To me, when I see this creature, when I see the description, I immediately think from like a game design perspective, ooh, let's make this something a player can have as a familiar. You know what I mean? That's the knee-jerk reaction, I think, of many designers. But instead, they made it a 10th level creature. This is like an epic, not epic, but like a cool looking badass creature that comes to you and asks you for, or demands something from you instead of the other way around. That
Maybe for you to be its familiar.
Exactly. And to me, that was such an unexpected thing for them to do. And I really, really like it. You know, it opens it up to so much more story options than you could have had before. Because, you know, like when we think of familiars, we think of like fairy dragons and stuff like that. Those are small.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
maybe not
powerful.
small, but like tiny or whatever. And powerful, but they're not fucking 10th level.
Right.
You know, they're like 4th level, maybe.
Yeah. So I guess the upshot of this entire conversation is someday there is going to be a snake that slithers through your window in the middle of the night, and it will have tiny bells, and it's going to say, Robert, will you be my familiar? And your answer is going to be what?
Oh, resounding yes.
God damn, yeah. I will be your goblin familiar every day of the week.
He's going to go hungry, though, because I'm not like the saddest person in the world.
Okay, you can direct him my way. I can help him out with that. I know a guy.
It's going to be feeding on my partner the whole time. All right. Yeah. So that's my monster, Asper's Grief. I tried to pick something else because
you kept coming back to that one, huh?
I just fell in love with it immediately when I saw it. And a lot of times my gut is just where I go.
Yeah. You know, on our last video, I kind of raved about the magma otter, and I decided not to pick that for this list because, you know, I wanted to cover different ground.
Yeah, totally.
But I'm still super positive on that lava otter. All right. My number 4 is my favorite NPC in the book, of which there are many. There are elemental lords. There's at least 2 per element described in this book. Each one of them gets a full page plus art. There are what do you call it? Narrators at the beginning of each chapter on a different elemental plane, and they each have vibrant personalities with speech patterns and art and all of that. So this book is chock-a-block. It's got more NPCs in it than like the Legends book did.
Absolutely.
So so there are a lot to choose from.
I fell in love with the narrator for the fire plane. It's not who I chose, but the way that they described them speaking just immediately brought to my mind like someone I know personally. You know what I mean? It was so evocative.
Super evocative.
I loved it.
Yeah. So I did not go fire. I went the other direction. I went water for this one. And the good elemental lord of water is a giant swordfish with flipper flips. And she is pretty depressing. She's pretty heavy. She's been locked away for a very long time. And I don't know if you've ever had the experience of living in a place and having a roommate, somebody who lives with you, and then you just go away for a couple of weeks or a month or half a year or something like that. And when you come back, there's like a pile of pizza boxes on the coffee table. None of the dishes have been washed in that entire time. And there's a colony of rats in the corner under laundry that dates back to the Carter administration.
Oh God, you're really
that's the elemental plane of water. So this woman, again with the names, Lysianassa, Lysianassa.
Very good.
She is the Empress of the Torrent. Her thing is currents, flow, oceans, tides, water, life, giving properties of water, the cleansing through currents and movement, and progressing forward in your life, and not dwelling on what's back there, but continuing to push forward and just continue on towards the new.
Positive change.
Positive change, right. That's her thing. So after eons of being locked away in the hall closet, she comes back and finds this guy, Kelazandri,
Sir Dragon,
the brackish emperor.
Sir Dragon Waterman, with his cool flippers.
And he hasn't been doing his dishes this entire time.
No,
he's been letting the pizza boxes just pile up on the table.
Okay, I gotta say, like, when I first read this entry, so a little bit about me, I grew up in Florida. And for a lot of crazy reasons, I was aquaphobic.
Mhm.
I almost drowned when I was a kid and multiple times. And that just kind of ingrained a fear of swimming in deep water in me until I eventually pushed past it. And now I'm, halfway decent swimmer. But that took, that was in my mid to late 20s
Right.
when I finally got through that. Um, the edicts of Kelazandri instill hydrophobia in others. Kill your foes by drowning them.
Yeah.
Fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
Sacrifice treasures to the depths of the ocean. It's like both of those things are so terrible. And he's like, yeah, but also treasure.
By the way, I'll take your stuff.
Also treasure me, mateys. And it's like, well, okay, what the fuck, dude?
We can't have it all be heavy.
Yeah. And then the anathema is destroy bodies of water, obvious. And then use magic to calm the waves.
Yeah.
That is wild.
See, that's the thing. He doesn't dig on people destroying bodies of water, but he doesn't mind cluttering it up with pond scum and detritus.
Exactly.
And, like life-stealing properties in water. That's his jam. So I guess everybody has their own version of what destruction of things means.
Yeah.
It's just a relationship between those two NPCs. And you can see them both at once. One's on the left side, one's on the right. You get it at a glance. It's adversarial. Even the art, they're facing each other. It's just so many good design choices in here. So that is a lot of what I liked about her. Let's see. She's ashamed. She's a deity that exhibits shame. Can you think of another example like that anywhere in the pantheon of either Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or anything else?
I can in this book, but that's the only place that my mind springs
exactly.
to mind.
Yeah. The design choices for NPCs and personalities, they're human in so many ways, which makes them super interesting. So what is she ashamed for? She's ashamed of herself because she participated in the infighting among the good elemental lords way back when, and how that contributed to their imprisonment by the evil elemental lords eons ago. So not to get too political on this, but one particular political party has many different faces to it, and they all have their interests that they want to push forward. And the left has a hard time unifying practically and effectively.
That's an interesting.
As a guy,
that's an interesting illusion.
On the left,
it's an interesting illusion. Yeah.
So
or
all of these, good elemental lords way back in the day, they just couldn't get together.
Yeah,
and they ended up falling. Because the evil guys came in, and this is where the comparison stops.
Yeah, right, exactly.
They said, hey, we got an opportunity here.
Yeah.
And they basically cleared the board. So like 50% of the power structure just got siphoned to these evil elemental lords.
Yeah.
And so she has a great deal of shame that she's processing now. And that just makes for a rich NPC interaction. Above and beyond, I am powerful and I will grant you spells.
Yeah.
Now go do my edicts and don't do my anathemas anymore, and we should be good. I'm so glad to be alive right now in this age of gaming.
I think Zon Kuthon. Sorry, I cut you off.
Go ahead.
I think Zon Kuthon might be the closest thing I could come to when it comes to sorrow and bereavement, I guess. But it's so Hellraiser on the nose that it kind of doesn't make me want to empathize with them at all.
I don't think we're supposed to empathize with Zon Kuthon.
Nah, I don't think we are either. We're definitely supposed to empathize with them.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing for me anyways with Zon is his relationship with his sister.
Well, Zonny.
And how he's permitted to remain.
Yeah.
And how like the actual global politics interact with that particular bit of divine insertion onto the map. I mean, it's not like Nidal is a small coastal country, off the map. It's right in the middle of the fucking landmass next to like world powers.
Yeah.
And yet
they are a world power. I mean, given the power of...
They're protected for sure. Yeah. You can't invade that place because he's got territorial issues. He made promises, and Zon Kuthon always keeps his promises.
It's true. Lawful evil. Lawful evil.
So yeah, that was my NPC choice number 4, Lizinasa, the Empress of the Torrent.
I similarly picked and I swear to God, guys, I am not just going to pick a bunch of metal stuff. All right. This is my last metal one.
We promised we wouldn't do that.
We promised we wouldn't do that, but
because I can go back and redo this whole list and do only metal.
Where are the gods? Where are the gods? Where are the gods? So my pick was the quote unquote good elemental god of metal. The thing I love about the dichotomy between both of them is that the evil one, the bad one, the negative energy one isn't necessarily evil.
Yeah.
It's so Ferramenstra is the negative channeling deity of metal. And Ferramenstra is basically a giant rust monster that consumes and destroys the leftover remnants of all of the old cities that have been created on the plane of elemental metal. Because everyone in the plane of elemental metal loves just making shit. And the second they get done making something, they're like, that was fun. Let's do it again.
Right.
So they just go off and make another city and leave the old one behind. And Ferramenstra represents the inevitable fate of all of us via the heat death of the universe, basically. Yep. And to me, that's not evil.
Cheerful.
It's not cheerful, but it's definitely not like malevolent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, she's more like a cosmic force and less a moral force.
Exactly. So to me, the opposite of that is this character with a lot of emotion and a lot of things going on. What was the word you just used? All right.
I'm still stuck on inevitable heat death of the universe.
Gotcha.
And what that does to my future.
Gotcha. So my choice is Laudinimo. Laudin.
These names, you guys, these names.
I'm just not good at reading.
It's like laudanum, right?
Laudanum.
That's how I'm reading it.
Laudanum EO.
Yeah, the metallic medicine back in the day that people used to take, and they should not have been doing that.
So their story is basically they invented alchemy.
Literally
the progenitor of alchemy.
We're playing a game where that's a class.
Exactly.
This dates back to this person who we didn't meet until about a month ago.
So if you ever have an alchemist, first off, why are you playing an alchemist? Second off, this is your god.
You have this person to thank.
And that would be a really cool story tie-in.
Yeah, and while like you said, there really isn't a moral component. It's not like the evil one and the good one.
Yeah.
You can choose the harm or heal divine font if you worship Laudinmio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I love about their story is they started this society of like artists and scientists and all of these creative people making things, making the worlds, the multiverses better and doing all this research and stuff like that. And then when the when the Earth Nation attacked, they lost out to the Earth dragon. This
little bastard right here.
The Earth T-Rex.
Jim Jacobs right here.
Yeah. They lost out to Jim Jacobs. And then when that happened, they got super sad because they had just failed to protect their realm. And they went into a deep sorrowful stasis and kind of hid themselves away, I guess, is the backstory. Yeah. And now that they're free, I guess they got put away or something, but now that they're free, they're still sad.
Yeah, this sort of thing doesn't go away in a 24-hour period.
Exactly.
It takes time.
And the other NPC that I love.
One last note on this one here. If I remember right, this person didn't choose to be the elemental lord of metal.
They were that was a mantle that was hoisted upon them. They just wanted to vibe and do research.
They just wanted to make shit. Leave me alone so I can do my art.
Exactly.
That's this person.
Exactly.
And then people were like, no, you're really good at this and we need somebody who's responsible to run this place.
Literally.
By the way, don't fuck it up.
Yeah, and then they did.
And then this happened.
and then James Jacobs
I'd be depressed too.
I would too.
Who's your next one?
So connected to this character is Serac, who is like almost like not their avatar, but like their greatest prophet in a sense, because Serac is trying to revitalize this.
Such a creepy picture.
It's so creepy. That's the other thing I love.
Page 139.
The dichotomy between how fucking creepy Serac
It looks like worm hair.
Yeah, and then their positivity. They're actually like a positive force in the plane of elemental evil or metal.
I keep doing the same thing in my head.
Yeah. Dyslexia. And they're trying to reconstruct and revivify this organization of creativity and positive research and stuff like that. And I just love the story. I was not.
So they run around the elemental plane of metal going, come on, guys, we got to keep this positive.
Yeah.
Come on, you guys. Things are looking up. They're really starting to look up.
What I love about the sorrowful story of Laudinmio is there's literally a 13th level item that is one of her tiers, one of their tiers, because they're agender, which is also kind of like
that's deliciously emo.
Crazy. Yeah. And the tier is like, can get super sad if it's around too many people, but it also has super powerful abilities related to emotion.
Yeah.
And to me, that's like just wild. Like all of these story tie-ins are just so pitch perfect.
Yeah. And to get back to Captain Tick over here, the one who's eating her way across the reality, Paizo has hit these notes a couple of times before. You know, Grotus is the moon god of the end times.
Exactly.
And we also have the rough beast who's imprisoned at the bottom of the pit of Gormus. Give me a name.
Oh, Rovagug.
Rovagug, thank you.
Yeah.
And, these are sort of like those who consume and the universe is gone at that point. This is kind of in that wheelhouse, but there's no sinister moral evil component to it. This is just a force of nature. They're just in their way, chomp, 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 until the end of known time. And I thought that was a really cool, less juvenile take.
Absolutely.
And
what I love
really
about it
that.
is it allows a player to worship a quote unquote evil deity and still have like a lot of depth to them. Because like it's really hard to worship Rovagug and be like part of a normal adventuring party of pseudo good people. But excuse me, if you're a worship of Grotus or your worship of Pharamenstra, then your worldview, while a little bleak, could totally fit in with a party of generally good people.
Yeah,
just a bummer.
You could still be the cheerful nihilist.
Exactly. And I think we experienced some halfway decent writing during the Grotus worshiper in the Kingmaker CRPG, which I know you haven't played because you were saving it for.
Right. That's the dwarf, right?
Yeah, the dwarf.
The dour dwarf. Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of like overly a bummer all the time, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, you didn't play him as overly the bummer, and I wonder if maybe they were trying to get you to do that.
Yeah, but I had a good time. I had a good time with that character and his character development.
So, yeah.
So that's my pick.
The end is nigh. That's just fun.
And their follower, Serac. All right, moving on to my favorite piece of crunch, number 3, on page 225. It turns out Nick pointed me to this one. I forgot to mention that to you a while ago. And I read it, and I thought, oh, okay, that's cool. And I went through and read the rest of the book and came back and thought, well, wait a minute, I'm going to take another look at that skiff. So this elemental skiff, it's a vehicle. It's a vehicle, presumably you're level 15. If you want to be precise about it. It's rare. It's magical. It costs 19,500 gold pieces. Oh, yeah, it does.
It's 30 feet by 15 feet and 20 feet high. You can have 1 pilot, 3 crew, and 6 passengers. This is how you get to Gilligan's Island in space. So we're talking Spelljammer in the plains. And that is a whole new type of story that is now living rent-free in my head. And I love it.
It's right here.
And it's right. It's got art in the book.
Yep.
Of course it does. It's a cool way to do planar adventures. Now, if I remember right, planar adventures was a really big thing at the end of the life cycle for Pathfinder First Edition. I think that might have even been like the second to last.
It's a Spelljammer ship.
It's a Spelljammer ship. Yeah. So I personally, and this is just a me thing, I tend to have a problem with adventures where you're just like, you jump through a portal and now you're on the moon.
Yeah.
Oh, look, 30 feet away, there's another portal. Now you're underneath the volcano on the other side of the planet. Oh, look, there's another portal. It's just, portal fantasies, number 1, they're just not my jam. Number 2, they just feel too easy. You know, there's no emotional investment in oh my God, where's the next portal? Got to find the next portal. That's not there for me. But we all like Firefly, right?
Mm-hmm.
We like Mad Max, the trucks. Zorro has his horse. You know, these vehicles that we bring with us, they're ours. We get to dress them up. We take care of them. When they start to break down, we find replacement parts. There's an investment to having one of these that the entire party depends on. It creates more interesting means of conflict that you just can't do with the fucking portal sitting in the middle of a dead forest. It's just
or maybe 5 portals all in a circle underneath a fortress.
Which, you know, I'm less rough on that because that was basically Kingmaker. We were building a keep, and that was the big secret at the bottom of the keep.
Yeah.
So I give that one a reluctant pass, but I definitely get what you're saying there. It's frustratingly too easy. Also, that one had a whole bunch of lore components to it involving the Elven Goddess and portals.
That's true.
So if they hadn't have done that and it was just portals, it may as well have been something that Gary Gygax just crapped out one day in the bathroom. But having this planar skiff, it feels like Firefly with swords and spells.
Absolutely.
And that is a thing I felt like we've been missing for a long time, especially since the folks at WotC don't know how to do Spelljammer anymore.
Yeah. The other important thing here is that GMs out there, excuse me.
Gums.
It's important to remember that you could give a party this access to this item and
way ahead of 15th level.
Yeah. At 5th level, at 4th level, you know what I mean? Yeah. Something could happen. They could meet someone who happens to be the captain of the ship. Maybe it's docked in water somewhere, pretending to be a normal ship on the material plane. Something happens. Everyone jumps on board, and the ship captain looks at the party and goes, "We're getting the hell out of here." Pulls the crank, and all of a sudden, boom. Yeah. And then you just transport to a new dimension or like a new reality. And the party's just like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Right.
And, you know, fish out of water story. Boom. Just like that.
Yeah. Just because like a spell or a weapon or in this case a vehicle has a level attached to it, those numbers do mean things.
Absolutely.
But it's not like it's hard coded where you just can't interact with it.
To me, it's the difference between the party having power over the item and the item having power over the party. Yeah, using an item of super higher level than you are in order to resolve conflicts is a no-no in my brain. But having it and you're not using it to resolve the conflicts in the adventure causes conflicts.
And yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
I'm totally on board with that. So basically, don't monkey with the with the numerical balance of the encounters.
Yeah, we're not saying give your players a ship with a 15th level ship. We're saying let your players interact with it, maybe controlled by another NPC who's rightfully powerful enough to.
And how cool would it be if 15 levels later, it's yours now?
Yeah.
I mean, you put in the sweat equity and
exactly,
you know, story. So this planar skip on page 225 of Rage of Elements,
Davy Jones.
It really lit my brain up in the planar sense, which I haven't been for all of my time with Pathfinder. Like I don't really give a shit about planar adventures in Pathfinder. I sure as hell did in D&D way back in 2nd edition because Planescape and Ravenloft. And now I kind of am again. And, you know, I was a Spelljammer boy for a while back in 2E. So, this kind of, you know, the kind of stories I like to run, the kind of like to play in. This is not that.
Absolutely.
At least anybody who knows me up here doesn't see me gush over planar stuff. So I had to put this one at number 3 in my top 5. So this one actually beats out lore shit on my list.
I'm sure you're going to figure out a way to make the planar adventure you have cooking in your mind somehow turn that into a noir. I know you can do it. We go to the plane of elemental metal and it's all
I
noir
do want
shit.
to run a space noir.
Of course.
But I'm saving that for Starfinder. That's not going to be a Pathfinder thing.
Yeah, when we jump on the Starfinder bandwagon when 2.0 drops.
Yeah, no, when I do this kind of thing, this planar Spelljammer thing, it's going to be more of like a Arabian Night Scheherazade kind of a thing. Yeah.
Oh,
well, in the planes.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
So maybe space too. I don't know. I'm just not excited about like space or the crystal sphere,
the final frontier,
in D&D type settings. That just never got me. I mean, I'm gonna do science fiction role playing if I'm gonna go that road.
Yeah,
but planar shit, Yeah, for sure.
I totally agree. And to me, like I can never really get into I have a hard time getting into the noir dark kind of stories in TTRPGs.
Mhm.
But I think I'm finally coming to realize that it has a lot more to do with the setting of fantasy than it does the actual TTRPG experience.
Mhm.
I thought I couldn't get into dark things like that, but then when we started playing with that Blades in the Dark campaign
Mhm.
with Aspen and gang, I mean, my character was still kind of like the comic relief, but he was a sicko murderer.
Mhm.
Like I was playing a literal, um,
Sociopath.
yeah, exactly. You know, an accountant who murdered people. Um, because of that, it kind of began to peel my eyes open, and I was like, maybe it's just I can't divorce the high fantasy I'm used to with that dark kind of noir serious gameplay. And maybe I need a change of scenery in order to get into that. And I'm hoping maybe if we ever do a um, Starfinder game,
Mhm.
I'll be able to kind of sit in that chair and actually inhabit that play space appropriately. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm I'm going to say something that may or may not be true, but I'm going to back it up. I think that has a lot to do with the types of culture that we consume throughout our lives. So if you haven't consumed noir and then you're handed a character sheet and you're told to play like you're in a noir, you don't know what the fuck that means. You just haven't consumed it your whole
Yeah.
life. You haven't read The Maltese Falcon. You haven't read The Big Sleep. Maybe you've seen Sin City. Sin City is definitely noir,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a different kind of noir. So what is noir? And that's the sort of thing you just sure you can go to the Wikipedia page and read it, but that's not the same as, you know, watching a Dashiell Hammett story unfold on screen with the weird fucko lighting techniques they have for all the shade and shadows and, you know, the triple cross and the femme fatale and all of these tropes that are distinctly noir
Gotcha.
that everybody else like stole for decades after and used them in other genres. So it's no surprise to me that you're struggling with the noir part of our game because that's not the sort of culture you've consumed as far as I know.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
And it's the same thing like with me, manga, anime, and anything Eastern related.
Mhm.
Like next year is supposed to be really big on the Shangxia releases for Pathfinder. And so much of that's going to be lost on me because technically I know what a fox with 9 tails is, but I don't have an emotional vested interest in it because I just haven't consumed that stuff growing up. So everybody's got their own version of that.
Totally.
And that's the thing about getting 6 people around the table to cooperate into a singular genre or mode of storytelling. It's a player investment, man.
It's almost like you need to send people a reading list before
Homework,
they can join your game.
right?
Yeah. Here's your session 0 homework. Show up and have watched these movies before coming to session 1, please.
Yeah.
So my
there
item
will be a quiz.
Yeah, there will be a quiz. My item was chosen almost specifically because of how badass it is.
Uh-huh.
And
like raw power?
No, it's not actually powerful, but if an item can make me want to play a gunslinger, it probably deserves to be my number 1 item in the book.
Robert hates gunslingers. I think it's unfair. But
I don't hate them. It's just it's always been incredibly immersion breaking for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got a really bad rap for being too powerful in Pathfinder First Edition.
Sure.
And it's always just left a bad taste in my mouth.
Okay.
But the Obsidian Blade is...
Talk to me about the Obsidian Blade.
It's a gun sword made of magma and obsidian.
It's Final Fantasy or Devil May Cry. Is that Dante's thing?
Yeah. So I read the description and it's like, it's a gun sword. You for once every battle, basically, once every 10 minutes, after shooting with it, I think you can make it explode into obsidian shards around you, which is just fucking cool. It also gets like +1 fire damage.
It sounds like a finishing move on one of those one-on-one arcade games back in the day.
Or you like charge in.
You level up all your mojo, you get to the end of it, and you get to trigger that super move.
And the thing about it is the play style that is built, the gunslinger type that uses these combi weapons.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're called combination weapons, actually. I use the term combi from Warhammer, but it's effectively the same thing. Where they're a weapon and a gun combined, a melee weapon and a gun combined. That play style forces you to um, get into the fray and fight with your weapon and shoot at close range.
Mhm.
So the fact that it has like an AoE surrounding it that just explodes, dealing damage, is absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, it's I'm a simple man.
All right.
I'm
so
a simple man.
when we eventually get to the gunslinger goblin iconic that we're going to design,
Okay, yeah.
that's your chance. That's your opportunity.
Absolutely. And to me, this is like a protagonist item. You know what I mean? This is like, oh yeah, that one goblin who walks around with obsidian. What is it? Obsidian edge. You know what I mean? It's a weapon that someone gets notorious for using.
That's such an edgelord name.
It's got so much like,
yeah,
fucking cool like edge to it. Yeah, exactly. I don't
it's
know.
rock and roll for sure.
It's rock and roll as fuck, dude. And that's why I picked it. Not because it's the most powerful in the game. There's actually a couple items that are a little that are seriously strong. And I mean, there's a lot of strong shit in this.
I'm so proud you picked a suboptimal item.
I know. I mean, it's not. Oh, what's also cool about it is it grows with you. So it starts on page 120.
I love that item scale with player characters. That is so juicy.
Like, the first one is a 6th level item. That 6th level is right around when you start getting cool. You know what I mean? So your character's finally getting to know themselves, and then they find obsidian edge. And that kind of will round them out and give them like, that's their thing now. And then
that must be nice. I don't think I started getting cool until around 9th level. Some of us are late bloomers.
Some say he was never cool.
One person said that, and they are not here anymore.
And then there's a stronger version of it at level 12, then level 18.
Sure.
So this is kind of a weapon you can upgrade as you go along, as you level up. And its abilities get cooler too as you level, so it always remains relevant.
See, I like that a lot because I'm also a big fan of legacy items. I know Starfinder has you swapping out weapons as you level up. It's irritating to me because when we watch like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, they keep their weapons through the entirety of their level 1 through 20 progression. It doesn't really change. Han Solo had the same fucking blaster his entire life.
Okay, Eric, this may upset you. This may turn you off from Starfinder. I don't know what they're going to do to change this since the 2nd edition of Starfinder. But as someone who doesn't
don't make me cry,
as someone who doesn't like buying things, Starfinder may not be the game for you because the entire system of balance, the power of scaling, it's all equipment based.
Yeah,
you're constantly spending money to buy the shiniest piece of gear that it's appropriate for you.
Yeah.
That's the scale.
If they're going to keep that and adopt the chassis of the Pathfinder 2nd edition, which is what they're doing.
You mean the action system?
The 3 action system and a bunch of other stuff.
Because the item scaling, if I remember correctly, the item level system started in Starfinder.
Right.
And got adopted and refined in Pathfinder 2nd.
Yeah. That part I wasn't aware of. But yeah, I think that's something that they I'm gonna get it anyways because I love Starfinder.
Yeah, we're definitely getting it. We're definitely getting it.
So I'm gonna reserve my my tears for later.
So yeah, that's my item. Why don't you tell us about your next one?
Next one I'm really excited about because I've been digging on this kind of shit since I started D&D, and it's called Elemental Churn. Yep, there it is. Elemental Churn. So I've always been a fan of these moments of transitions between ideas. And in the context of planes, what happens when the elemental plane of Earth brushes up against the elemental plane of fire? You probably have magma or a volcano or something. And back in the old days, they were called para-elemental planes. And, you know, you had your inner planes, your outer planes, and all that cosmological breakdown crap. Elemental Churn is sort of a return to that in a sense. It's let's see, where 2 elements come together and they sort of like commingle. So if you imagine like fire and water coming together and there's a bunch of like steam
exactly.
Afridi. They're called something different now. They redid genies as well, by the way, for this thing. So they've updated it. More to come on that.
Yeah.
But Elemental Churn, I remember in Pathfinder 2nd edition, because I made a monk that was based on this, there were ways to not just get locked into one element, but you could actually combine multiple elements, and you could have them all coursing through your system at the same time. And from round to round to round, you could actually change damage types based on what element you were channeling at that point. There was a specific genie type. I think they were called the Jan. I probably just butchered that. But they were basically they represented all elementals,
Mm-hmm.
so they weren't locked into any one individual. And I think they might have been native to Galarian. But the idea of you're not just fire, earth, water, metal, wood in this case, and others I'm missing. You could be like a composite of multiple. So elemental churn is a new lore thing, more or less, originated in the outer planes, and there are churn regions in the different elemental planes. There are
Right.
pockets where like a hole in that elemental plane occurs, and then another one is like poking through.
That's what I love the cosmology picture we have here, where
Yeah.
it shows us. We can actually see the bigger one right here,
Yep.
where it kind of shows us how they overlap
Mhm.
on the between the different planes.
Yeah.
And to me, that's kind of representative of it. I mean, there's actually a couple examples of it where they talk about these two elemental planes commingling.
Mhm.
Like in the center of the plane of Earth is a magma core or something made of fire. From
Right. And
it's
I'm
a portal
guessing
to the
elemental plane of metal is on the other side of that.
Oh no, fire is.
Fire. Okay.
Yeah, because it's fire in the rock place.
Gotcha. I thought they were trying to like take all the magnetism stuff and link it to the elemental plane of metal.
Yeah,
But-
yeah. But it's a core. It's like in the center of the.
Okay.
I don't know. That's what I remember
Sure.
reading. Yeah.
So yeah, having and anytime you have like two things like fire, ice together, steam, you get new items, you get new spells, you get new monsters, you get
Totally.
new NPCs, you get new deities, you get power vacuums just look different, and the things that fill them. There's just a million different kinds of stories once you start commingling these little bits of elemental churn, and I can't help but wonder if they're going to do a major story plot point involving elemental churn, hybrid elements, and the what do you call it? The big storm down in the pirate domain.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah. The maelstrom.
Media Maelstrom, yeah,
Yeah.
next to the Media Galti Island. So it just feels that there's stuff coming up in an elemental way. We have these massively powerful, good elemental lords. They've emerged, and they're not as powerful as they used to be, but they're hugely influential. There are these elemental churns that are linked to Golarion, so they're it's that effect is spilling over into the prime material plane, and you've got this Pathfinder remastered uh, rejiggering of the magic, like how magic works, and the fact that we don't have schools anymore, but we actually have capital S schools now,
Mhm.
where you go to learn these things, and elemental magic is a huge part of that. So it seems like they're building up to this elemental war spillover onto the prime material or something. I just keep seeing things adding up in that direction.
I love that you said that because in
Elemental churn's in the middle
my
of that.
piece of lore,
Mhm.
I actually have a note about a hook to an entire campaign that could get started based off of that
Mhm.
kind of tension
Yeah,
that's been
back in
building.
second edition, that was kind of the blood war,
Mhm.
where the demons and the devils were having their ageless war, and that would often spill over into the prime, and we'd have to deal with that shit.
Yep.
As that, but with Rex crystalline
with James
soldiers,
Jacobs.
with
Yeah.
James Jacobs leading the
And what it's shaping up to do is
The
kind of
radioactive army.
create a setting that is non-typical. I want to say it's obviously not a setting that's divorced completely from uh, the Lord of the Rings kind of
Mhm.
ethos, but with every small step they take in these directions,
Mhm.
they're moving themselves farther and farther away
Yeah.
from
incremental
these-
changes.
these typical assumptions we have about fantasy. And they're beginning to truly create their own fantasy.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm really here for, is them creating their own fantasy cosmology that is so unique that when I step into it, it feels like I'm in a place I don't understand.
Mhm.
Because right now, because of all the fiction is kind of so intermingled, all these ideas are so similar. You watch one fiction, it's kind of all the same, right? But the further and further we get away from that Tolkien-esque fantasy,
Mhm.
the better I think our stories are going to end up being.
Sure.
You know, it reminds me a lot of Dark Souls, actually.
Yeah.
Dark Souls is just close enough to like the classic German fairy tale feel. It's got the knights and the armor, and they all look very knightly or whatever. So you assume that the lore is going to be of the same cut of the same cloth. But then you just scratch the surface and you're like, holy shit. No, this is
They went a
totally
totally different
this
direction with
is
that.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I want to see in this.
Yeah, and that's why you're talking about it now.
Exactly.
It's stuck.
Exactly.
Oh.
Exactly. It's probably one of the best pieces of lore I've ever consumed from a fantasy franchise.
Yeah, I remember I used to be huge into that, and I still haven't dipped my toes in the Dark Souls water.
I heard that like Brandon Sanderson is also really good at this kind of thing where he gives like new fantasy. He like kind of sculpts his own fantasy realms, and they all have their own rules and cosmologies.
Yep.
I've never read a book. A couple of the patrons were talking about reading one of his books or finishing one of his
Way
books.
of the Kings.
Way of the
Way of
Kings.
Kings.
So I think I might pick it up and read it on
If you can pick it up. It's big. It's heavy.
Oh, no, I don't read.
You can hold your door open.
I don't read books. I listen
Books
to them.
read me.
Yes, yes. I don't read good.
The most interesting Robert in the room.
Yes. But no, I listen to a lot of audiobooks and podcasts while I'm running. So normally I think I'm due for a new fantasy book.
Mm-hmm.
I read like one or two a year.
Yeah, you're a nonfiction guy, so this is it's interesting that would be the one you pick if you picked one.
Oh, cool, cool. I like that. All right, so we're doing lore.
Yeah. Lore. Mine was Elemental Churn to finish that off.
The Saline Sarcophagus.
The Saline Sarcophagus.
The Saline Sarcophagus.
You say saline, and I'm thinking water.
Imagine a chasm so wide, it's the size of our planet.
That's a big chasm.
And at the bottom is silt. Under that silt are caverns.
I'm getting Dark Sun flashbacks.
That lead to other planes of existence. This is...
You're just buying time so you can find the page, aren't you?
What I think is the backbone of the elemental earth tunnels.
Okay.
I think this is what they're alluding to. I'm not the lore guy. I don't know things good. But the Saline Sarcophagus is quite literally a chasm so large it could eat planets found in the plane of elemental earth.
Okay.
And at its bottom are these tunnels that lead to other like dimensions and other planes of existence.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that immediately like linked together with Oprok.
That's the Onyx Road, right?
Maybe. I don't know. They didn't like
Onyx Path, Onyx Road.
They didn't directly confirm it, but like I wrote it's awesome. And I'm thinking that it's probably the portals that General Azersi of the Hobgoblin Kingdom of Oprok use as their dimensional tunnels.
Sure.
Maybe. I don't know. But I read that in my mind. The description of it just blew my mind immediately. And I was like, oh my God, this is so fucking cool. You know what I mean? There's like sand at the bottom and stuff like that. And the story of Azrael.
That is so metal.
Isn't it metal as fuck, dude? And then the story of the god, Azuriel or whatever, James Jacobs.
Hey, look, it's a dragon.
Oh, look, it's a dragon. The story of him and this chasm connected to all these other dimensions just got my mind like thrumming. And I was like, so James Jacobs just lost a control over all these elemental planes, and they're grasping for power. They're hungry for power, and they just lost it.
Mm-hmm.
Or where else can they go? Oh, well, these blue things are crawling around at the bottom of my chasm right now.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently they made friends with some of the earth elementals down there. Let's see what's going on there. So he sends a couple of his 14th level rock people to investigate.
Right.
They crawl through those dimensional tunnels leading back to Valorian.
Okay.
They report back and say, hey, boss, they've got some powerful fucking shit right now. There's some crazy stuff going on down there. Maybe we should go and put our finger on some scales.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I read this chasm in the god, and it was like such a great story campaign hook. You know what I mean? Some earth elementals with the help of Oproc, or maybe with Oproc at opposite of it, starts to like really fuck stuff up on Galorian.
Uh-huh.
And it turns out that it all leads back to this earth elemental god that the players don't even expect.
Yeah. This guy is
through his cavern. You know what I mean?
He's at the center of a lot of plots that go back a few years.
Exactly. And why not make him your super antagonist to a campaign?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the reason I chose the Saline Sarcophagus is not only because it's metal as fuck, but because it's one of the only pieces of lore that immediately got me thinking about campaign.
Sure.
You know, it's the only piece of lore that really imprinted a campaign. Excuse me. A campaign hook immediately in my mind, and I began thinking about making a campaign around it.
Yeah, no, I totally dig that. And I'm glad you picked this. I'm just going to read a piece here.
Sure.
The Saline Sarcophagus. The Saline Sarcophagus is a chasm vast enough to fit your entire world of Galarian inside its walls. The ground of the sarcophagus is salt, as fine as sand, and littered with sinkholes, each connecting to a miles-long shaft that twists and turns before ending in a portal. There it is again. Some of these portals lead to the plane of air, others to skies of different worlds across the universe. With the plane of metal returned, I have heard rumors that some of the portals lead into the heart of the Scouring Tempest, a terrible storm that rampages across that plane. And there's 2 more paragraphs after that.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I wanted to read that out loud is that right there is a singular entry of which there are about 10 or 12 in each of the elemental chapters.
Absolutely.
In here. So you can like pull this out and plug it into your game.
100.
And you have dozens of these kinds of options. So they give you little hooks. They give you some NPCs to throw around in there. They give you some descriptions of the physical locale, maybe a little bit of plotty machinations, what people are doing, who's trying to achieve what. And they're just super bite size. That's one, that's another, that's another.
I think each one of these elemental planes gives you 3 or 4 things to look out for, bad things, and then 3 or 4 good things.
I didn't do that breakdown.
Cool
okay.
Things that, that's
because it can't all be bad, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So they give you a couple options that are dangerous, environmental options, and a couple environmental things that are like cool and you should go check out.
Yeah. And we need that because things are starting to look up, you guys.
Yeah.
We're not locked away in the plane of metal anymore.
Exactly. So that's
We're turning that frown upside down.
That's my bit of lore. I guess we have one more thing left, don't we?
I dig it. Yeah, we do. And this one's a spell for me. I'm guessing it's a spell for you.
Okay, so Erik was long-winded with his honorable mentions. I'm gonna crack the crunch knuckles.
Should I hold your beer? Where's your beer?
I
hold my beer.
Okay. For the spells, I ended up having to choose 3. I have one that was actually my favorite and just 2 strong honorable mentions. So let me hear yours, Erik.
Mine is on page 143.
All right.
The Mantle of the Melting Heart.
Ooh, this one is a good one.
So I listen to a lot of goth and emo music coming up. So titles like these, they resonate immediately with me. I dig them. 2 action, 5th level, arcane primal, concentrate, manipulate, metal, morph. These are the tags. I think it lasts a minute. You can switch among the options within this spell from round to round. So this is a singular spell that doesn't just do one thing. It's not a one-trick pony spell.
4 options, and you get to pick 2 of them.
Yeah. So each round, you can use the same spell to achieve different results. I'm going to take you back to my my metal relic thing that I really liked earlier. It's the same thing. Anytime you can have one particular tool in your little player toolbox and you can do multiple results depending on the needs of the moment, I'm really fucking happy with that.
Especially for spellcasters in a Vancian spellcasting system. Yeah. When spellcasters can use 1 spell slot to do 5 different things, it's 10 times as powerful as 1 spell that does one particular thing.
And it's really fun. I mean, being a fighter and never missing gets really boring. Being a wizard who only casts evocation spells,
magic missile,
they're the ones that give you all the dice you get to chuck at the table. For me, that's really boring. So having the flexibility within individual options is enough to make this my number 1. So Mantle of the Melting Heart. This is not something I would say that is an optimal spell. It's the kind of spell I can't see people taking, but a GM can design entire sessions around the functionality of this spell that create moments for this particular spell to shine.
Absolutely.
So let me go ahead and read it right here. Like I said, 5th level spell. It's a 2-action spell, Mantle of the Melting Heart. You bathe yourself in a mantle of liquid metal. Metal, right? Gilding your skin and armor with an oily sheen. Upon casting the spell, pick 2 of the options below. As a single action, which has a concentrate trait, you can change one of your chosen abilities to a different option from the list. Copper Core. You draw electricity towards you and then disperse it. You gain resistance 10 to electricity. All electricity effects within 30 feet of you must succeed at a counteract check against your spell DC or target you and only you. So as a wizard, you're adopting a little bit of the champion's territory through your spell casting.
You're adopting
I dig
risk
it.
is what you're doing.
Yeah. Golden flesh. Your body gains the chemical inertness of gold, barely reacting to substances that would otherwise greatly disturb your physiology. You become immune to poison and disease. Gain a +2 circumstance bonus to your checks against any poison and disease effects currently affecting you. So we went from like siphoning electricity and protecting your buddy to I can eat what goblins eat.
Yeah.
React.
This represents these 4 things kind of represent what metal is supposed to do now.
Yeah, where
All
the
in
theming
one
meets the
spell.
crunch is where Erik is happy and puts you at the top of his favorite list. Reactive touch. Your touch reacts easily with other metals. Any metal that touches you or that you touch takes 2d6 acid damage. That bypasses hardness. That ain't nothing, folks. Weighted grasp. Your arms become long cables. Your fists heavy as anchors. You gain a cabled fist unarmed attack with the disarm. That's going to be the name of my new band. Cabled fist unarmed attack with the disarm, finesse, reach, and trip traits. And that's in the flail, and it's in the flail group.
Yeah, I mean, like giving a caster access to like an attack is not always the best thing in the world, but like it's fucking cool.
Yeah.
Giving you stretchy arms.
You deal D4, Mr. Fantastic from the elemental plane of
Mr.
metal.
Fantastic, and you're a wizard, so you're probably as smart as he is too.
Yeah, true, right? Your cabled fist deals 1d4 bludgeoning damage plus an additional d6 poison damage and grab. That's a lot of shit you can do.
Absolutely.
So it's battlefield control is how I'm seeing that. A little bit, not as strong as other wizard options.
I think out of all 4 of those
One
options,
spell, 4 options.
What I love, my favorite out of all 4 of those options is the acid damage against metal bypassing DR.
I wasn't expecting that, but I wasn't expecting that to be a thing that they brought into this book. But I'm really glad they did because I like being pleasantly surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's unpleasantly surprised in my experience.
Because like imagine having acid hands that melt through metal and you have this spell in your pocket, you know what I mean? And then the party comes into a exploration encounter where there's a big metal door in their way.
Sure.
Or like something large and metal that's in their way. And the wizard can just be like, claps his hands together and then just melts it away within a minute.
Yeah. Or the city watch apprehends you and your friends and they're like, put down your weapons and take your armor off. All right. Well, I'm not wearing armor, officer. And then, they get ready to cuff you and.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's
or you melt the cuffs while you're being taken away in the cop car.
See, this is what I'm talking about. A GM can design scenarios around specific spells when the spells are interesting enough.
Absolutely.
I can't really do an interesting design around a fireball spell.
Try harder, Erik. Try harder.
There's nothing there.
Yeah.
It's a one-trick pony kind of experience. But this year, we have 4 ponies. Minimum.
We have 4 ponies. I love that.
So my number 1, Mantle of the Melting Heart, Rage of Elements, page 143. Give me one thing that can serve multiple functions and increase the flexibility of my options and immersion within a combat or a scene. And it doesn't matter the quality of the rest of that scene. I can focus on this. And that's that every player and every GM has that low bar they need to set for themselves. So as long as they clear that, then we're good. It doesn't matter how good a thing is. It matters where the floor is.
Absolutely.
As long as we can clear that and we can walk away with our head held high.
There's like a minimum viable product that each player and DM has to meet at each DM table.
in order to
table.
manage their own expectations and not be disappointed every time they show up at a table.
Exactly.
So that's kind of, I forget where I was going with that, but that's, oh yeah. This spell right here. No matter how, let's say like everything is just dog shit for a session of Kingmaker.
Okay.
Let's just say, you know, you're on 2 hours of sleep.
Never happens.
And your 5-hour session was finished in 30 minutes because we had to go home. Okay. That sounds like a really bad session.
Yeah.
But if during that 30 minutes we do a combat and I have this spell, I'm being interactive despite anything else going on that session. And I can't do that with a fucking fireball or a magic missile or a one note kind of experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think I'm going to stop there. It's a topic I'd like to go into more in the future, and I think it's deserving of its own short pod.
Or maybe its own long pod.
Maybe, yeah. The idea of managing your own expectations by creating a floor that you can respect, other people can respect, and just amping up the multiplicity of options.
That is a great episode idea, yeah. If you have any great episode ideas, let us know in the comments.
We listen sometimes.
We listen all the time. No, literally, I'm on the toilet all the time looking at your comments.
He is literally on the toilet right now as we are filming this.
There's a toilet right here.
I made sure we had the table here so you wouldn't be subjected to that.
All right, so I got 3. One is actually my top spell.
Oh, yeah, I'm back to holding my beer.
But the other 2 are pretty cool.
All right, what do you got? Hit me.
Cool. All right. Cloud Dragon's Cloak. I love reactions because if the trigger is broad enough or if the trigger is specific, but that specific thing happens all the time, reactions are incredibly powerful because they effectively give you a 4th action every turn. Right. Cloud Dragon's Cloak is freaking awesome. It's highly defensible.
Is this an air thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's an air spell. Basically what it does is against, if you or any companion around you gets targeted by a ranged spell, a ranged attack. So it could be a ranged spell if you really want. You can just, as a reaction, give them concealment.
Okay.
Which is a flat, if I'm not mistaken, a 55% flat DC. So that's a 45% chance of just not getting hit. So as a
that sounds like a good time.
Yeah. So it's like, imagine, you know, one of your friends is about to die or super low on HP and, you know, is hurting.
Right. And they don't owe you any money.
And they don't know they do owe you money.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to cast my reaction spell on you and give you concealment because
you want your money.
Exactly. Adding another layer of failure to any attack, like concealment and stuff like that, incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Like from a probability perspective, it just throws other shit out the window. You know, forget the +1. Flat, another dice roll, flat 45% chance to miss. That's what I want to be doing. So the fact that I can do that as a reaction is awesome. And I can look out for my friends. It's to me, definitely high on the list, especially if I'm playing a battlefield control caster. If I'm playing a support caster of some kind, those are the kinds of spells I'm looking out for.
Yeah, I haven't done a whole hell of a lot of reaction-based character design. That doesn't have to do with attack of opportunity. So that's something I'd like to get into more going forward.
You mean reactive strength? Because that's what it's called now.
This is me holding my beer again. What do you got?
Next up is Cinder Swarm. This is my other
Fire Nation.
Yeah, this is my other honorable mention. I think it's over here somewhere. It's just a concoction of crazy status effects all rolled up into one spell. So status conditions include blinded. It does decent damage. It gives forced movement. And it's sustained. So you can keep doing it round after round. It's just like everything you want in a banger spell, all wrapped up into one. I thought it was under the fire spells.
With the name like that, you'd think it would be.
Cinders. Oh yeah, here it is. It's just right at the bottom. Yep, 4th level spell, 60 feet, targets one creature. You basically create fire ants or fireflies. Again, a dual purpose spell that has 2 modes, dual modal. And then one of them, the fireflies, 3d6 fire damage, dazzle or blind, depending on the fortitude save. Fire ants, 2d6 persistent fire damage with a reflex save. And then it forces them to move 5 feet in a direction you choose as it tries to escape the bleeding ants. I think a reasonable DM will be like, you can't have them jump off a cliff to run away from the ants.
Sure.
But even 5 feet of directed movement is that you get to control is super
One more
powerful.
obstacle. Yep.
Exactly. It's at least 5 more feet they now have to move to get to you. And then if you stay in the spell, the group of fiery vermin can now move to a new person and aggravate a new person.
Sure.
This is crazy strong, all wrapped up into a beautiful little package of versatility. Because like I said before, when you talked about your spell, an advancing spellcasting system, versatility is incredibly powerful, especially when both options are good. If
I'm going to start picking all my spells based on whether or not I see bullet points in the description. That's going to be my new thing going forward.
I wonder if you could make a character who only has modal spells. That's an interesting.
That's an exercise.
I might actually have to do that. And then last but not least, my actual number one is
your actual number one. All right, we're in metal territory, right?
Oh,
it's got to be
coming
metal.
back to metal. We're coming back to metal.
I have a metal spell I'm bringing into my Druid and Kingmaker, by the way. So I'll hit you with that later.
Hell yeah, Rust Cloud. Okay. So it is 3 actions. All right,
that's all of the actions.
An expensive action cost. Range 120 feet. Area 20-foot burst. Basic fortitude. Duration 1 minute. No sustaining, just like most cloud effects.
Okay.
If you guys don't know this already, I am a fan of clouds. They tend to be pretty powerful. My number one spell, going back all the way to Pathfinder First Edition in 3.5, was Stinking Cloud, baby.
The solid.
Sickened condition, especially back then, was chef's kiss. So, red blown flecks of rust, jitter in the air, forming a cloud of agitated particles. All creatures within the cloud become concealed, and all creatures outside of the cloud become concealed to creatures within it. It's a cloud. The cloud deals 5d10 slashing damage to any creature that starts its turn in the area with a basic fortitude save. This is a 4th level spell. That's not supposed to do that much damage.
No, but it does suck up all of your actions. Is that part of the balance?
I think it's maybe just broken because it goes on. Metal
but wait,
rust,
there's more.
Yeah, metal rust. Metal that rusts off of creatures adds to the cloud. When a metal creature takes damage from the cloud's area increases by 5 feet. And the creature starts to rust, taking 1d4 persistent damage. You can dismiss the cloud. And of course, you can upcast this heightened to increases the damage by 1d10. So there's a spell that we've probably all heard of called Cloud Kill. It's a 5th level spell. If I remember correctly, it does the same amount of damage.
Okay.
What? I'm going to double check that because I remember I have it in my notes, but I'm just going to, that's so crazy. Cloud Kill, PF2E, looking for you, Nethies. Let's fucking go. Cloud Kill.
I'm picturing a rust monster being summoned and this cloud following it, like that dirt cloud that follows Pigpen and Peanuts.
Okay, so the conversion isn't the same. Wait, what?
Never mind. I was buying you time.
68 poison damage versus 5d10. So 5d10 would be 5.5 times 5, which is 25, 28, 29 damage, give or take. 68 is 4.5 times 6, which is 24, 25. Yeah, so just the same amount of average damage as a 5th level spell. That's crazy. And it creates a cloud. It's a cloud spell, does stupid damage. And if
how many actions is that one?
It's Cloud Kill. Cloud Kill is also 3.
It's also 3. Okay, so they did the math.
It's just really fucking good, guys. And it's a cloud spell. I love me some clouds. So yeah, that's my number one.
That's your actual number one. Okay.
I had to be a munchkin eventually.
Yeah.
And when it comes to picking the best spell, I was just like, bro, there are so many good spells in this book. I am spoiled for choice.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the little Rage of Element spell decks that they're going to be coming with eventually. Because you know they are.
You and your spell decks, man. I love it.
I just like anything that a player can hold and not have to pick up their goddamn phone to do research with.
I completely
I want
agree.
instant information. Like, can we get your turn to move a little faster? Here, use my $150 worth of spell cards for your character.
Yeah, I mean, for Warhammer, I printed out. We have like these in Warhammer. There's a bunch of cards
little
that
cheat
have
sheets?
like they're like little cheat sheets on magic cards,
Mhm.
and players will actually people will format them so they look like magic cards, and you can print them out, put them in a sleeve. So for my Necron army, I have a bunch of stratagems that look like little
Sure.
Necron cards and stuff like that. It's the same thing with your spell cards.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really great system. Honestly,
it's especially great if you're dealing with spellcasters or thaumaturge, kineticists, anything with that extra level of just baked in complexity.
they're most useful
Get it on
when
the next card.
yeah, and they're most useful when you have a caster that has the same spells all the time, I think. You know, if you're playing a sorcerer or some sort of memorized caster, I can't remember what the name is, spontaneous caster. Having the cards always in front of you, these are my options. This is what I get to do, is awesome.
Yeah.
Having multiple copies as a wizard would be really cool too. So it's like you can literally make your little spell deck, stack your spell deck. These are my spells for the day.
Yeah.
You put them down and you can like spend them as
I like
cards.
doing stuff like that and like putting it on the table in front of me and just putting them in the order in which I want to spend my actions. So I can see my turn order here. And as I'm listening to what's going on around the table, I might swap them around, I'll pull one out and stick another one. So that by the time it gets to me, I've already rolled the dice I need to roll with the damage, with the spell. I'll just tell you what I fucking did.
Exactly.
And my turn doesn't need to take 20 minutes.
Yeah.
As a caster.
Cutting down turn time is a big thing. And
it makes combat more interesting and fun for me.
Absolutely.
And I know I talk a lot and complain a lot about combat in this system, but it's only because I love it so much.
And
it's like Twilight Imperium 4. You know, that's a board game that takes 8 hours to play.
Oh, yeah. Okay, the board game.
I will never play it again, probably, because it should not take 8 hours to play. But there's so much analysis paralysis.
8 hours?
It's a beast.
Bro, I could play 2 games of Warhammer in that time.
I could do a lot of things in 8 hours.
With a lunch break.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, anyway, so that's our top 10, guys.
Yeah.
Our Goblin top 10.
And it wasn't all about metal.
And it wasn't all, it was just majority about metal, but it wasn't all about metal. I will say the metal kineticist impulses, not that great.
Yeah.
Just not that great.
Oh,
at least that's my opinion.
That hurts.
You'll hear more about my opinion on the kineticist soon, I hope. I've been cooking on that script ever since I got my little grubby hands on the books. I just really want to do it justice. It's going to be the first deep dive on a class we do, and it's like a class I've never played. So I want to really know it all the way down.
You play it in first edition?
Yeah, I played it.
So you've got some context for the kineticist. It's just a new one.
Yeah, the new one's totally different though. Like
it's that different.
It's super different. Yeah,
because I never even read the kineticist for first edition. So this is all fresh eyes for me.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild class. It's easily their most complicated in a lot of ways. So I really want to do it justice, and I want it to be the best dang guide on the internet. I want it to be the best one on YouTube.
Remember we were talking about having like a low bar to clear.
Now when it comes to you goblins, you only get the best, only the best for you. So anyway, that was our top 10. Thanks so much for hanging out with the goblins. We really appreciate your time, and thanks for hanging out with us again. As always, keep it weird.
Keep it weird.
We'll catch you.